The ending of Splatterhouse 2 left the door wide open for another sequel, and to be honest with you, I really wasn't too sure about where they could realistically take this franchise next. I mean, hell, they already burned down 2 houses already, so it's not like there was much real estate left for them to splatter stuff in. But hey, what sort of a scary Jersey retro game reviewing guy would I be if I only covered 2/3 of a trilogy? So, for the last time, let's splatter some damn games. Once again, the intro looks great. I thought the intro in the last game looked really good, but using these photorealistic images definitely adds to the atmosphere. But there's just one small thing that they left out. There's no text or dialogue which lays the story out for anybody. So even if you did play the last 2 games, there's no way that you're going to have any idea what the hell's going on with this one. Okay, here's a red jewel and a bunch of blue faces coming out to yell at me. A title crawl, a lunar eclipse that burps like Eudora Welty. More title crawl, eyes going white while glass breaks. More title crawl. Alright, I really don't want to take the piss out of this one too much, because honestly, it is some of the best looking visuals that I've seen on the Genesis. So maybe the instruction book actually has some info for us, right? Okay, so apparently after the last 2 games, Rick decided that the thug life just wasn't for him. So he became a stockbroker or something on Wall Street, and then he settled down with Jennifer in this huge house in Connecticut, and they eventually started a family. Must be nice. It doesn't understand time. It doesn't feel fear. It hungers for power. Before science, before fire. It was. Primal fury. Waiting for a chance. Waiting for a tool. Waiting. Energy. The temples flowed with energy. And then there was nothing. Dry dust and dreams of past glory. Then the sun, strange men, and a new land filled with energy. You know, how appropriate that they would put a picture like that after the prologue, because that's exactly how I feel after reading this crap. This is all starting to read like something that Edgar Allan Poe wrote while he was shit-faced, so I'm just gonna read this all out for you. Evidently, after Rick broke the forbidden seal in the underworld to rescue Jennifer, someone forgot to go back and close the door, because a bunch of monsters escaped, and apparently they've been waiting around for the past decade or so for this big lunar eclipse to appear, so they can attack Rick's family and resurrect something called the Evil One and take over the world. It is a convincing enough story, and it does tie the whole trilogy together, but how the hell did any of these monsters know where Rick lives? Did they just grab a phone book and look up Big Scary Mansion? Anyways. The terror mask, sensing the imminent danger, appears on Rick's doorstep and offers to help him fend off the legions of darkness by bonding with Rick one last time. And seriously, that's all we really need to get started here. I just don't understand why they couldn't have put any of that in the intro. Stage 1 starts off in the foyer, where you run around the first floor looking for Jennifer, while she's getting chased around by an unseen monster, and yeah, we've got some changes here. Now, were these changes implemented properly? That one's up for debate. Now, the biggest change is in the gameplay style itself, and I'll admit here that I was pretty apprehensive about them suddenly just changing up the whole gameplay style, but honestly, after playing through the last 2 games, I realize now that it was long overdue, and it does show that change, when done right, can be a good thing. The original games took place on a typical arcade-style 2D plane, and it followed this really methodical pace, where you keep going in one direction, killing enemies, and then you reach a boss, and then you're off to the next stage. Splatterhouse 3, on the other hand, goes for a 3D beat-em-up style approach, and now I kind of feel like I'm playing a spooky-themed Final Fight or Streets of Rage. But calling Splatterhouse 3 just a typical beat-em-up clone really doesn't do it any justice, because it does actually manage to bring some fresh ideas to the table that set it apart from other titles at the time. You see, most games like this had the standard thing where you go through an area fighting a bunch of enemies, and then once you've knocked the last one out, the screen will do this dissolve effect and then you're off to the next area. Meanwhile here, once you've killed the last enemy, a couple doors will open up, you can pop up a map and plan out what route you want to take to get to the next objective. And I gotta say, this right here is how you do a friggin' map. It's simple, it's easy to read, you know where you are, you know where you need to go, and that's all you need. I mean, it is kind of hilarious if someone would need a map to navigate their own house, but I still love the concept because this actually gives players the ability to choose their own path to get to the goal. I mean, sure, I could take the most direct route, but you might come across more enemies. But if you're willing to take a gamble and do a little bit of exploring, you might find an easier path with less difficult monsters, or even the occasional warp room. This part here, very well done. And since we're on the subject, I might as well talk about the enemies, because this time around, they're way more varied, thank God. I really can't complain about the enemies in this one, because most games like this have you beating up the same guy 500 times anyways, and since these are supposed to be hordes of undead monsters, what more could you ask for? One cool thing I noticed is that instead of having a generic life bar on top of the screen, the enemy's health is based off of its in-game appearance, so the more damage that you do, the more messed up they start looking. And that right there is awesome. So let's do a quick enemy run through while we're at it. Okay, we've got standard headless monsters, purple bastards, Slimer's Uncle Blubber, dogs straight out of the thing, severed hands, skin parrots that ripped off my slide attack and they can keep that shit, flying laundry, and surprisingly, no bats. Once you beat this creep, a Ninja Gaiden style cutscene explains that Jennifer's been infected with a boar worm, and you have to go kill the mother boar worm to save her. Makes sense, and the cutscenes really are a great way of moving the story along. It just would have been great to have that in the intro, but hey, at this point, what are you gonna do? Stage 2 starts off on the second floor with Rick hunting down this boar worm thing, and this is where another really big change comes into play. Each level starts off with a timer that's counting down to when a monster is going to grab Jennifer or David, and personally, I think it does a great job of giving players a sense of urgency, which is something that you never really get to experience in a game like this. I gotta say, so far I'm really digging all the new changes. Wait, what? I've got 1 minute and 45 seconds left. What's all this shit about how I didn't make it in time? No joke, I thought the game glitched or something, so I restarted the game and I made it back to this area in around the same time, and Jennifer still died. I looked online to see if this is what's supposed to happen, and it turns out that you actually can save Jennifer, but the problem is that if you reach the boss room with a second less than 2 minutes, you automatically fail, and Jennifer dies and gets turned into some mutant beast bitch goddess that looks like that scary blue thing from the Twilight Zone movie. You see, this sort of thing right here really pisses me off. Why the hell would you start me off with 6 minutes when I really only have 4? And you know what? I'll even play along with the logic that on average, it probably takes about 2 minutes to kill that stupid boar worm, and if that's the case, why not just start the level off with 4 minutes? And if I make it on time, I get to fight the friggin' thing. Otherwise, if I'm a second late, then I just have to fight and kill Jennifer for the 5,000th time. Just don't give me this bullshit saying, you didn't make it to the objective on time, while the clock is still ticking down in the corner above me. This thing right here is one of the all-time biggest fuck yous in gaming history. And honestly, it's not so much that they don't give you enough time to get through the levels, it's dealing with things like these long hallways that are filled with possessed books, and severed hands of the asshole-ish variety. They can't be destroyed, they're next to impossible to avoid, they barely do any damage to you, and their whole purpose in life is to just waste your time and piss you off.
Alright, come on, goddamn, stop! Stop it! Alright, here, fucking, son of a goddamn lamp! Fuck you! Come on, get up! Son of a bitch! Would you move already? What the fuck? God, this is ridiculous. Stop it!
But the worst part are these scrolling areas where you don't need to clear the area to go over to the right side of the screen. You can do that whenever you want. But if you leave any monsters behind, you can't go back there and kill them. You just have to stand there like an asshole waiting for them to show up. And you know what that means? Take a wild guess. The game just wasted more of my goddamn time. But on the flip side, if you actually manage to beat the first and the third levels with more than 2 minutes left on the timer, it'll actually skip the second and the fourth levels respectively by having you go through a bonus zone that's loaded with extra lives and power-ups. But the drawback to that is now you're skipping entire levels, which shortens the whole general playthrough experience. And at only 6 levels, that's cutting out a pretty big chunk of the game. It's just, why would you give players this huge house and the ability to explore it, and then just yank it away like that?
Why? 'Cause fuck them, that's why.
I know it seems like I'm really hanging my hat on just one issue, but it really is a huge issue. It's almost like the developers wanted to try something new, and then they pulled the plug on it midway through the game's development. Because after Stage 4, this whole timer thing just doesn't really matter anymore. Because after that point, you can hit the last boss rooms whenever you feel like it, and it won't change a damn thing. It's a neat idea, but nothing ruins a good time faster than being a slave to a clock. Yeah, go figure, right? Now, regardless of if you save Jennifer or not, Stage 3 has you running around on the 3rd floor of the house looking for David, and my god, this kid is oblivious. I mean, it is kind of common knowledge that if monsters invade your home, you get out of the damn house. You don't just run up to your room and sit on your ass and play with your toys. Seriously, it's ridiculous. The house has been turned into this chamber of horrors, and here he is, having the time of his life, sitting on his ass, playing up in his room. You know, speaking of the house, I might as well talk about the level design, because I'm already halfway through the game, and the level variety really isn't blowing me away here. See, in the first Splatterhouse, you had zombies in the background puking into the foreground. You had the shaved weasels skittering around and jumping from out the scenery. The levels all stood out, and that's because everything was unique and super detailed. It just set this tone that the deeper that you go into the house, the more disturbing things are gonna get. Even in the second game, as much as I complained about it barely taking place in a house, the levels at least looked great and there was some variety. Meanwhile, in Splatterhouse 3, the entire game takes place inside Rick's house. Now, from the outside, I guess they wanted to kind of give you vibes of the house from The Exorcist, but honestly, it looks more like the house from the Money Pit, and I can't believe I just referenced that. The inside, on the other hand, is a bit of a shit show, because there's some things I like and there's a lot of things that I hate. And most of it can be chalked up to the fact that most games in the genre take place out in the streets, or in an airport, or in a bar. It's just that it moves on to different locations, so a sense of scale really doesn't matter. This place is like Mr. Burns' mansion where you need directions to go to the bathroom.
Oh, which way to the bathroom?
Oh, it's the 23rd door on the left.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Well, good thing there's not an attic.
Find the bathroom all right?
Yeah.
Alright, if my kids had toys like that, I would burn the fucking thing and then I'd bury it under a church. So according to this cutscene, everything that we've been through so far was just an elaborate diversion so that the Dark One could kidnap Rick's son, because apparently he has psychic powers, and now we're headed off to the basement. Oh my god, there's a sewer in the basement. I mean, this is a sewer, right? There really isn't much else to say that I haven't already said about the level design, so just moving on. The boss for the basement is some floating beach ball that eventually turns into a giant bug that can discharge electricity. Who the hell does he think he is, Batra? The fifth level, I don't know where the hell I am. It kind of looks like something that H.R. Geiger designed, and I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, the game's just getting repetitive, but I know there's only like 2 more levels to go, so I might as well just slog through what's left. The boss here is supposed to be the evil one, and I gotta say, when I picture apocalypse causing end-of-the-world monsters, I'm definitely not picturing faceless naked bodybuilders that glow blue. This is actually supposed to be the big bastard that chased you out of hell at the end of Splatterhouse 2, but I guess this is what happens when you get off the gas for a couple years. So that's how we're going to end this one? The Mask was using Rick all this time to kill some monster that no one's ever heard of so it can take over the world? This is really stupid. His whole purpose in life is to float around attaching himself to faces. He doesn't even have any arms or legs. And besides, if his whole goal is world domination, why not just attach himself to the blue thing and let Rick live out the rest of his life trying to find the laundry room in his ginormous house? The whole story at this point is just too convoluted for me, and I'm done with the whole thing. Rick fails at life, Jennifer's a big pain in the ass, and Rick's son is a laundry list of therapy bills just waiting to happen. Just burn the whole goddamn house down, with Rick, the Mask, and the rest of his family inside. Fuck them all. After Splatterhouse 3, that was all she wrote for the franchise until a reboot was attempted in 2010. And after poor sales and mixed reviews, the series lies dormant to this very day. And in a way, I kind of feel that the series ended at just the right time, where it ended on sort of a high note, instead of going down the path of most of the movies that it took inspiration from, where it was just given sequel after sequel until it was bled dry. As far as this game goes, if you wanted to stack it next to other beat-em-up titles at the time, it would honestly be one of the best out there, simply because there was unique gameplay mechanics, along with fast-paced action, challenging gameplay, and great graphics. But on the other hand, if you wanted to stack it up to other games in the series itself, well, it's definitely better than the second, but it still doesn't hold a candle to the original. Splatterhouse 3 is just one of those games where I want to applaud the attempts at giving us new things, even though one of them totally crippled the experience for me. You just don't know if you should be happy about one thing or get pissed off at another, and that sums up my whole feelings about this game in general. There's stuff I really like, there's stuff I really hate, but still, it was a fun game, so it gets a pass. Still, at the end of the day, what you've got here is you've got a series of games that actually had the balls to try to be different during an era when violent video games and spooky horror themes really weren't very commonplace. You can go on Steam now and you can find the stuff everywhere by independent developers. But back during the early 1990s, it was very rare to come across a horror game that actually had violence in it. I mean, hell, Splatterhouse 3, as far as I could tell, was one of the first games that Sega Genesis actually put an age rating on by its own in-house advisory board. So hey, that's something, right? Now, before I wrap up this review, something that I figured we could do for fun is we'll close out all future reviews, including this one, by looking at the different cover arts of the game from across different regions. Because whenever I go out to do the thumbnail, I'm always blown away by how different the thumbnail stuff is. And I figured this is something we can do together. I'll tell you what I think, and then at the end of the video, you can leave me a comment telling me what you thought was the nicest looking one out of all of them. So yeah, before we get ahead of ourselves, we'll take a look at the first one, then we'll do the second one, and then we'll round it off with the third one, and then we'll call it a day. Alright, so going to the first one. Alright, so starting things off, we'll go with the one that I'm sure everybody's seen at least once in their life. The TurboGrafx 16 cover art. And yeah, this is iconic. I remember seeing this as a kid. It looks great, it's drawn really well, I like the colors, and I even remember the little blurb in the corner that says, "The horrifying theme of this game may be inappropriate for young children and cowards." And looking back at it after playing through this game, the only complaint that I really have is why the hell is Rick wearing green? I mean, yeah, I understand the red, but wearing green? Really? Still, I like it. It looks great. Jumping on a crossover to the PC engine, yeah, we've got Rick punching at a shaved weasel while that goddamn octopus from Final Fantasy VI is hanging out over his head. It looks a little more cartoonish, but I still think it's drawn really, really well. Just at least they got Rick's colors right, and who the hell does Rick think he is? A clickbaity YouTuber with that green glow? Ugh. And then finally we got the arcade flyer, and holy shit, this looks great. Everything looks nice and realistic and detailed. Well, except for Rick's mask, he looks like a bug. But seriously, I like this one. We've got Rick, we've got Biggie Man, we got the monsters hanging out in the background, all the blues are flowing really nicely, and you can even see the little bats flying off in the background. I like this a lot. And if I was going to have to pick one out of these ones, I'd probably go with the TurboGrafx 16 version because of the nostalgia factor. The PC Engine one looks nice, but not as nice as a TurboGrafx 16 one. And the arcade flyer looks great, it's just I don't really have any memories of it whatsoever because Splatterhouse just was not released in arcades across America on a wide scale. I've never seen a cabinet in my entire life. So yeah, that's the winner there for me. Moving on to Splatterhouse 2, what the hell is going on with this one? You know, I don't know if they were trying to appeal to a wider audience by downplaying the severity of this game, but it's just, wow. We've got a xenomorph, we've got a cute octopus, we've got a pissed off ghost with cholo eyebrows. Even Rick's mask is doing the same thing. And then we've got the zombies in the background, and that's actually the best looking thing about the whole picture. What's with all this blue on the cover art? Yikes. Moving on over to the Mega Drive version. Well, at least they got the Sega grid, and I like the Sega grid. And finally moving on over to the Japanese box art. Wow, that's much better. I don't know, do I really need to tell you which one I like the best out of all these? This just looks great. And last but least, we've got Splatterhouse 3. Alright, we've got Rick looking very buff, very Thunder from Down Under, in his bell bottoms, with a battle axe ready to kill the fapping monster. It really doesn't look bad, it looks nice and detailed. It looks like they actually took it seriously this time. Not bad. Moving on over to Japan. Well, I guess they showed a little bit more of the picture, so that's a plus. And something else that I noticed, along with Splatterhouse 2, is that over in America, it was Splatterhouse 2 and 3, but over in Japan, it was Splatterhouse Part 2 and Part 3. And I don't know, I kind of like the part thing a little bit better. It's kind of hard to decide this one, so let's take a look at the back of the box. We won't normally do this, but why not? Alright, so on the back of the box, he's back. 16 megs of terror, multiple endings, non-linear gameplay, my ass. Nasty new weapons, yeah, nasty's an understatement. Password support, cool digitized graphics. Get a grip, give Rick a hand, yeah, I'll give him a hand right across his mouth. It's a knockout, aim high, power lifting, stretch your limits, fuck off. And on the back of the Japanese box, well, I can't really read all that, but it does kind of remind me of a VHS box, and that's always cool. So there's your winner right there. So yeah, that right there just summed up my entire experience with the Splatterhouse trilogy, and I wanted to say that I'm really sorry that it took so long for this one to come out. It's just been a very complex year for me for obvious reasons, but hey, I'm getting back on my feet, I'm getting back into the groove of things, and I'm really excited to move on to new projects that I've been planning to do forever. We just had to wait to get through this one, and now that it's finally done, I can't wait to get started on it, and I'm really excited to share it with you. And speaking of sharing, if you guys would be willing to do me a favor, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. I know I have to say it because it appeases the algorithm gods, but at the same time, it also helps me out a ton because the like thing, it'll push the video up so more people will see it, and also subscribing, that way when a new video finally does come out, you'll be one of the first ones to know about it. So hey, it's win-win, it helps everybody out, so yeah, now that I got that done, I just wanted to say, yeah, thanks so much for dropping by and inviting me into your day like this. I really appreciate you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And once again, I'm sorry that it took so long for this one to come out. I promise you I've streamlined stuff so that we should be getting stuff out a lot better. And now I've actually got way more help going forward with this stuff now that I finally got it set up again. So yeah, we'll see you really soon. So until next time, Auf Wiedersehen, kiddies. Bye-bye now, and take care of yourselves, okay?